Today, we're diving into a really intense and pretty unusual document. It's titled The Great Conspiracy, and it's a public plea from a tenured professor who claims his entire life and career were systematically taken apart from the inside out. We're going to walk through the exact claims he makes, one by one. Right from the jump, the document opens with this huge, sweeping address. You can tell right away this isn't some quiet internal complaint. No, this is a public declaration. It's aimed at basically everyone, signaling that the author thinks this is a story that we should all be paying attention to. So who's at the center of all this? A man named Dr. Mohamed E. Fayad. According to his plea, he's the target of what he calls a vile game, a conspiracy specifically designed to cause his complete professional and personal ruin. Okay, so where did all this begin? Well, according to the plea, the whole thing kicked off with one single event, an academic evaluation back in 2018. This is framed as the starting point, the first move in what he describes as a high-stakes game played against him. Dr. Fayad claims he was called into this evaluation meeting, but that it wasn't what it seemed. He says it was all a setup. And get this, he didn't go alone. He actually brought 2 lawyers with him, which, tells you he was already expecting some kind of showdown. He's arguing the point of the meeting wasn't to help him improve, but to entrap him. And who was in that room for this meeting? 3 key university figures: Dean Sheryl Ehrman, Department Chair Xiao Su, and an HR representative, Joanne Wright. The plea document points to these 3 individuals as being right there at the very beginning of this alleged conspiracy. The language used in the plea to describe this committee is, well, it's incredibly strong. It calls them biased and corrupt, and claims the standards they used for the evaluation were totally arbitrary and designed for one purpose: to force him out. So the crucial thing here is the accusation of premeditated intent. And from there, the allegations just get broader. The document doesn't stop with that initial committee. It also names Divyesh Jadhav from IBM, who's accused of filing a false report because of some personal beef. Then there are 2 other professors, Kay Horstman and Nikos Mortos, who are accused of professional sabotage through biased evaluations and straight-up deception. And to give a concrete example of this alleged deception, the plea highlights one specific incident. It claims that one of the professors, Mortoris, reviewed a tiny, informal advising session, but wrote it up as if it were a huge core lecture with more than 170 students. The alleged goal? To cook up a totally misleading and negative report on his teaching. So after that evaluation, the plea argues that the campaign against Dr. Fayad entered a totally new and way more destructive phase. This is where the allegations shift from professional sabotage to what the document calls financial and administrative assassination. This timeline here really lays out just how quickly things are said to have escalated. It starts with that evaluation in 2018. Then, boom, by January 2019, he's hit with a suspension, which the document bleakly describes as a mercy kill for his career. And from that point on, the focus shifts to his finances, which he claims began to completely fall apart. To anchor these claims of financial ruin, the plea gives a specific number, a gross income of $14,000. This figure is presented as the starting point from which he alleges a systematic financial collapse was deliberately engineered. So how did this supposedly happen? The document lays out a process. First, it claims aggressive deductions were taken from his income. Then, it alleges that illegal payments were directed to his ex-wife, suggesting some kind of collusion with the court. The end result he describes as a state of just unbearable financial and psychological pressure. But according to this document, the professional and financial battles were only half the story. The plea argues that while Dr. Fayad was fighting the university, a second, much more personal front opened up. And this time, it was within his own family. I mean, this just paints a picture of immense pressure from 2 sides at once. On one hand, you have a fight against his institution, and on the other, a battle against what he calls betrayal from his ex-wife and relatives who were allegedly trying to seize his personal property. He was essentially fighting a war on 2 fronts. The allegations here are, as you can see, deeply personal. The plea claims his ex-wife, her lawyer, and some of his own relatives all conspired against him to try and take his apartment in Egypt. The document says he put up with all of it for his children, framing it as a father's sacrifice against stabs from those closest to him. To really hammer home the scale of this struggle, the document puts a number on it: 7 years. So this isn't being presented as some recent dispute, but as a long, drawn-out campaign of alleged persecution that he says he's been fighting for a huge chunk of his life. So, after laying out years of alleged attacks, professional, financial, and personal, the document pivots. It moves from telling the story to making a direct and pretty urgent appeal for help. This is the whole point of the document, really. It's call to action. The document uses one powerful and, frankly, chilling word to summarize everything that's happened: liquidation. This word frames the entire series of events, not as a bunch of separate incidents, but as a single, comprehensive process designed for his complete and total erasure. The plea wraps up with 3 very clear demands. First, solidarity. Share the story everywhere. Second, action. Demand an official investigation into that 2018 evaluation and the people involved. And third, support. Provide psychological and material aid to help him keep up the fight. And to help achieve that first goal, broad solidarity, the document even provides the tools for a modern campaign. It puts these hashtags out there: hashtag justice for Fayad, hashtag end academic fraud, and hashtag stand with Dr. Fayad, to try and rally support online and turn a personal grievance into a public cause. So we end with this question, which really gets to the absolute core of the matter. The document we've just explored presents a narrative of a vast, multi-pronged conspiracy. Of course, others might see it as a severe employment dispute that has spiraled way out of control. The plea really asks us to think about where that line is and what it takes for one to become the other.